Durga Puja once again. However, this time the situation is somewhat complex. To begin with, there is irresistible pandemic and associated fear. As doctors and medical practitioners in Bengal have already warned that during these days of festivity, if people in large numbers gathers and come to see the pandals, there is a danger that the virus might spread further, and it would be extremely difficult to tackle that. And as a result, the intervention of the High Court and the High Court intervention trying to recreate some amount of discipline and restricting the number of people who could attend and enter the pandals and come near the pandals. But what is more interesting is that as next year is the year of elections in Bengal, there is huge politicization centered on Durga Puja at this time. Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi has inaugurated some pandals online, and in the process of the inauguration, he has already invoked a lot of Bengali symbols, referred to Bengali icons, cinema actors, literary figures, social reformer, and tried to come closer to the Bengali sentiment at this time of the festival. And on the other, Mamata Banerjee also has already announced that all Durga Puja committees and the clubs would be given 50,000 rupees for contributing to the puja, to this occasion. So the situation is extremely political. It has been politicized, and that too at this time of the pandemic, and when the High Court too has begun to intervene. So the situation is very unique. But the question that arises is that what do people like you and me, what do you and I do at this moment? How we look at this festival? And it is in that context, I must say, and say without the slightest hesitation, that there are many things associated with the puja. Yes, there is economic vibrancy that this festival leads to. There is a lot of excitement. There is vacation, the holiday, and people coming out of the monotony of the everyday life. And this is also the time when, for instance, the artisans, the artists, musicians, singers, and even literary figures get a great opportunity to articulate and express their talent. So Durga Puja, particularly in Bengal, has become an extremely important social function. But one thing that I must say, and which I have no hesitation in saying, there is hardly anything spiritual about it. If by being spiritual you mean not ritualism, but a quest for something transcendent, an inner journey, and self-cleansing and the spiritual cleansing, and a search for a merger between the phenomenal and the transcendental, between our embodied existence and something which has no beginning and no death, which has no end, the infinite, the eternal. There is hardly anything spiritual in it. There is ritualism, there is excitement, there is crowd, and there is spectacle, because these days Durga Puja, particularly in Bengal, has become almost like a spectacle with a phenomenon called sponsored Durga Pujas and the theme pujas. And when anyone enters that pandal, and if one's eyes are open, one could see that how the big corporations, corporate houses, big banks have almost colonized it with huge funding and with huge sponsor. And at the same time, we could also see, for example, in the age of ranking, even the idols are ranked and hierarchized. Different corporations give award to different kind of pandals on the basis of the decoration, on the look of the idol, and things of that kind. So as I'm trying to argue, there is hardly anything spiritual about the occasion. Yes, there is economy, there is festivity, there is vibrancy, and there is a lot of noise, corporate glitch, and there is fashion show. But there is hardly anything spiritual about the occasion. But what is most important, and herein lies my second point, at which time we are invoking Durga. We are invoking Durga at the time of this pandemic, at a time when the entire world is experiencing and passing through a turning point, and we have begun to look at and ask many questions regarding our civilizational journey, our technoscience, the way we destroyed nature, the way our unlimited greed and our violence has disrupted our relationships with the ecosystem. And as a result, the pandemic has brought those anxieties, and suddenly we begin to realize that we are just humble wanderers. We cannot exist and live like aggressive pride conquerors. So pandemic should be an occasion to have a different kind of prayer, to have a different kind of meditation, prayer for reflection that what we did with the earth and how we ought to live, how we ought to engage with the inherent uncertainty of existence, life and death. Pandemic should be the occasion to have a more rigorous, profound spiritual quest and the inner search. So can it be our prayer, or whether the prayer is only the mechanical ritualism that would characterize many of these bundles? So that, I think, is one of the important things that comes to my mind. And the second thing, at what time we are doing it. Now we see the assertion of demonic and brute masculinity in our cultural, social and political landscape. We see rape, we see subjugation of women, violence, and the brute demonstration of the demonic masculinity. Should it be the occasion to rethink our life, our cultural practices, to interrogate that brute masculinity? After all, Durga symbolizes the life-affirming power of maternity and femininity, finishing the demonic brute masculinity. So should it be the occasion for men to rethink their masculinity, to rediscover their maternity and the femininity inside, and to become more integrated, holistic, and spiritual and divine? And should it also be an occasion for women to see themselves as active, creative, spiritual, reflexive agents, not as the dolls of patriarchy, not as passive dolls, decorative dolls to be contented only with diamond jewelries and the saris, but the women who define their agencies, who are radiant and who express that zeal, that energy, that power of feminine life-affirming power which Durga's eyes represent. Should it be our prayer at this time, or should we mechanically engage in the similar ritualism, assemble near the pandals and engage with the butter chicken and the biryani and do the festival the way we have been doing for years? This is the moment of thinking and reflection.